Good afternoon. His Excellency Regional Secretary of West Java Province, Dr. Insinyur Setiawan Wangsaatmaja, Diploma SIMM, Honorable Guest, Region of Bandung or his representative, Head of Badan Penelitian dan Pengembangan Daerah Provinsi Jawa Barat or Research and Development Agency of West Java Province, Representative of Victoria Government, Australian Embassy, City of Melbourne, Director of Water Resources and Irrigation of Bappenas, Head of BBWS Citarum, and Head of DJKN Kanwil Jawa Barat, who represent the central government. Representative of Research and Innovation National Agency or BRIN, Head of West Java Planning, West Java Partnership, West Java Environmental, West Java Housing and Settlement Agency or their representative, Professor Diego Ramirez, Professor Tony Wong, and Professor Rob Raven of Monash University, Dr. Reni Suarso, Dr. Dwinanti Martanti, and Dr. Cindy Priadi of University of Indonesia, and Dr. Cipta Ediana of University of Pajajaran, Dr. Dennis Hardesty of CSIRO, Professor Christian Zurbrugg of Swiss Federal Institute of Aquatic Science and Technology, and last, other invited participants that I cannot mention one by one. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome to virtual Citarum webinar with the title Revitalizing the Citarum River and its Communities. I am Ratna Suryani as your MC for today. We start the event by listening to the national anthem of Indonesia Raya. You are please requested be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, before we continue, let us take picture together. Please activate your camera and give your best smile and hold it for 10 seconds. I will start continue from now, 10, 9, 3, 2, 1. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. You can off your camera. Distinguished participants, before we go to the next session, let me read some important information. This event will mostly be held in Bahasa Indonesia in the main audio channel. For Bahasa Indonesia speakers, please use main audio channel until otherwise directed. For English speakers, please use the English audio channel until otherwise directed. This webinar is recorded and will be made available via the MSDI website. Please submit questions for the speakers and panelists via the Q&A function on Zoom at any time during the webinar. And for audiences, if you want to add a question, hover your mouse and click the Q&A button. For speakers, if you see a question from the audience that you like, please upvote it by clicking the thumbs up icon, and this will help us to prioritize the most popular questions for first response. We will cover as many questions we can in the time provided, but please do apologize us if we do not get around to all questions. Okay, distinguished participants, now we are about to hear the opening speech from Head of Research and Development Agency of West Java, Mrs. Linda Al-Amin STMT. Time is yours.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Ratna. But I cannot start my video because host has stopped it. Okay. Your Excellencies, distinguished speakers, professors and colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished participants. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to webinar Revitalizing the Citarum River and its communities. This is a joint collaboration between our office, the Research and Development Agency of West Java Province, Monash University, and Australia and University of Indonesia. It is a great honor to see all of you. And before starting our program today, in this occasion, first and utmost, let me express my sincere appreciation for Dr. Setiawan Wangsa-Atmaja, the Regional Secretary of the West Java Province, who will be keynote speaker today's program, representative of Victoria Government, Director of Water Resources and Irrigation of Bappenas, Head of Balai Besar Wilayah Sungai Citarum, and Head of Kanwil Direktorat Jenderal Kekayaan Negara, who represent the central government. Representative of Research and Innovation National Agency, Professor Diego Ramirez, Professor Tony Wong, and Professor Rob Prevan of Monash University, Dr. Reni Suarso, Dr. Dwinanti Martanti, and Dr. Cindy Priadi of University of Indonesia, and Dr. Cipta Ediana of University of Pajajaran, Dr. Dennis Hardesty of Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organization, Professor Christian Zulberg of Swiss Federal Institute of Aquatic Science and Technology, all other researchers and program support persons, and all other registered participants that I cannot name one by one. Distinguished participants. In 2018, His Excellency Governor invited Monash University and University of Indonesia to help the West Java government find new ways to restore and protect the river. Monash University and University of Indonesia have a long and strong relationship working together and addressing water supply and flooding, drawing on the extensive research and experience of their teams. On this invitation from the governor, Monash University and University of Indonesia start to work together and with key officials across our government to develop a concept for integrated water and solid waste management. This involved field trips to Monash Informal Settlement Revitalization Program in Makassar, workshop in Melbourne, and showcasing of the emerging concept to universities in Europe and the UK. In spite of COVID bringing to a halt travel between Australia and Indonesia, the work has continued, and these academic partnerships have grown to include other universities in Indonesia and Europe, as well as growing cooperation between government and academia. This was recognized last year with a new international partnership between Monash University and the provincial government of West Java to formalize our cooperation through signing a letter of intent to collaboration on research, capacity building, and technology development for the Citarum watershed revitalization. The latest directions His Excellency Governor on August 31st, 2002 encouraged three important notions, namely recommendation from a living laboratory for international research and impact should be integrated with 12 strategies for our strategies on programs of Citarum Harum's action plan. The use of waste digitalization platform and plastic ocean as a global issue. Ladies and gentlemen, this seminar is a part of the above-mentioned cooperation between Monash University and the provincial government of West Java, and it has two purposes, namely, first, report the latest development on revitalizing the Citarum River and its communities to the West Java government based on the technical report issued August 2022. For meeting with the governor and the proposal for a pilot demonstration. And second, research teams present on key insight and evidence from R&D activities in 2021 to 2022 that support the pilot demonstrations. Thus, the seminar will be broadly organized around two main sessions. First, recommendations for integrated waste and sanitation solutions for urban transformation and river revitalization. Second, evidence for these recommendations that has been generated through research activities over the past 3 years, and specifically the collaboration between Monash University, University of Indonesia, Universitas Pajajaran, Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organization, and Swiss Federal Institute of Aquatic Science and Technology in 2022. This seminar is a concrete contribution in fulfilling the above-mentioned cooperation between Monash University and the provincial government of West Java. Thus, this worthy initiative has also brought together two governments, the government of West Java and the government of Victoria in Australia. Thank you to the Study Melbourne Research Partnerships Scheme for funding and support for this research and webinar. Congratulations on carrying out the seminar, and hope that this program will provide a meaningful platform to all related stakeholders in realizing the Citarum watershed revitalization. Finally, through saying Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, I officially open this seminar Citarum. Thank you very much for your attention. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you to Mrs. Linda Al-Amin. Now, ladies and gentlemen, now is the time to listen to the keynote speech from the Regional Secretary of West Java Province, Dr. Insinyur Setiawan Wangsa Atmaja, Diploma SAM. Time is yours.
Thank you very much, the Master of Ceremony, Ibu Ratna, and also thank you very much to my colleagues, Ibu Linda. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And good morning, everyone. And first of all, I would like to welcome and thanks to all participants, distinguished speakers, especially also from central government, who also join with us here in seminars, and also from province, my colleague from province, and also from local government. And professors, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, and it is a great pleasure to be here at the webinar Citarum 2022 that held and arranged by a joint cooperation between the Research of Development of Agency of West Java, Monash University, Australia, and also University of Indonesia. Distinguished participants, Citarum River is a pulse for the economic and life of the people of West Java and its surrounding. The Citarum River basin is located in the middle of Jakarta, Bandung, Cirebon, and in terms of economic triangle. The Citarum River Basin is a national strategic river basin. In 2015, the Citarum River Basin is served around 18.6 million people, and it is predicted to increase to 25.7 million people in 2035. With high rainfall intensity, the Citarum River area is very fertile, with natural conditions suitable for intensive agriculture throughout the year. The Citarum area has high water potential due to high rainfall intensity and high storage capacity in the mountain and also highland of Upper Citarum Basin. Citarum River is used for agriculture, irrigation, industrial activities, fisheries, and turbine generators. As a source of drinking water for the residents who live in this area, Citarum also supplies 80% of the raw water needs for residents of the capital city of Jakarta. Distinguished participants, on the other hand, pollution is the main problem of the Citarum River. The Citarum watershed is experiencing pollution and environmental damage due to high domestic and industrial activities on the river banks. Pollution and damage to the Citarum rivers include industrial pollution, agriculture, livestock, fisheries, and also domestic waste. In the Citarum watershed, there are still 200,000 households that difficult to access sanitation facilities, and some of them waste their wastewater directly into the river. Then there are still many industries outside industrial area, especially small and medium enterprises industry in the Citarum watershed that do not have a proper process of wastewater treatment plant. Animal husbandry also contributes to the pollution of the Citarum River. It has been identified that a number of breeders who live around the river do not process their livestock, especially the livestock waste due to the reason of the economic burden. Distinguished participants, in order to deal with the state of the Citarum River mentioned before, many programs and policies has been set up in place. For example, Citarum River has been declared as a strategic river in Indonesia through a presidential decree number 12 in the year of 2012 on the river basin territories. Then, the river protection from pollution was declared as a priority for the West Java government in Presidential Decree number 15 in the year of 2018 for the acceleration, pollution control, and damage of Citarum watershed. The government of West Java has acted quickly to set up the Citarum Task Force and to convene the support of the military to clean up the river and the police to enforce environmental protection law. However, the decree requires that society also contribute to the prevention and pollution and restoration of the river. Society includes individuals, community, and religious organizations, philanthropy, business, and also academic stakeholders engaging with such diverse actors to bring them together to find new solutions for preventing river pollution. It is a difficult but important challenge. Distinguished participants, today we will hear from the academics from both Monash and University of Indonesia, joined by research from the Pajajaran University, CSIRO Australia, and also EAWEG Switzerland, and in collaboration with the Research and Development Agency of West Java. Pollution of rivers and land is not unique to Indonesia only. It is a challenge for many countries with rapidly growing economic and population. These researchers bring experience and knowledge across water and wastewater, community engagement, pilot demonstration, and from program in Indonesia, Pacific Island, and African countries. Distinguished participants, today we will also hear about a roadmap for revitalizing the river and its community. This roadmap has been shaped by the R&D activities, close collaboration with key government agency, and engagement with local communities in an area designed for ecotourism. The governor has given his full support of the roadmap and the demonstration of new solutions for addressing river pollution. This roadmap requires everyone's support and ideas across government, industry, academic, community, and media. Our goal must to learn together about how to shape a new era of community development, how to build capacity and social governance to ensure these new solutions are accessible to all communities that have no access to sanitation and municipal waste. Only when we stop tons of solid waste and tons of wastewater being disposed into the river every day will the river be clean, healthy, and productive. Distinguished participants, this worthy initiative has also brought together among the government of West Java, and the government of Victoria in Australia. Thus, I would like to thank to the government of Victoria and the donor of the study, Melbourne Research Partnership Grant, has enabled fostering of international research partnership and R&D activity this year. With this grant, the university involved have undertaken feasibility studies that have helped to develop a new urban model or concept for demonstration in 2 villages in upper catchments. However, this is much more to do. We need a proof of concept, evidence that the new urban model and community-driven approach will work and are scalable. Distinguished participants, last but not least, I would like to thank my colleagues in provincial government and also the regency or local government for your participation, and also my colleagues from central government for your participation in today's webinar, and also for supporting in incubation of this new roadmap. I also look forward to strengthening the connection between West Java and Victoria through our shared interest in preventing pollution of our river and oceans. To do so, one of the important steps that we have to encourage by inviting more local researchers and universities along the river, the Citarum River, to be involved in our future joint research project. To end up my speech, congratulations on carrying the seminar of Citarum, and hope that our activities this time are useful in realizing the Citarum Harum Juara. Thank you very much, everybody, and especially for your attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you to Mr. Dr. Insinyur Setiawan Wangsa Atmaja. Ladies and gentlemen, the remark speech will be followed up by the acknowledgement of country and traditional owners will be delivered by Ms. Rebecca Hall as Victorian Government Commissioner for Southeast Asia. Ms. Hall, time is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to join you here today on this wonderful milestone. I am coming to you today from Jakarta, from Indonesia, but as this is a hybrid event and representing the Victorian government, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners and the custodians of the land on which many of you in Victoria or across Australia are coming from today. I personally would like to pay my respects to elders past and present and acknowledge the important traditions that the first owners, the traditional owners of Australia, have built in supporting and caring for our environment. Can I also acknowledge the presence of Dr. Setiwan Wangsachamata, the Regional Secretary of West Java Provincial Government, and thank you for such an inspiring keynote presentation. To Ms. Linda Alamin, the Head of Regional Research and Development and the Agency of West Java Provincial Government, thank you so much for your welcome remarks. To colleagues from Victoria, Professor Diego Ramirez, the Director of the Informal Cities Lab in the Faculty of Art, Design and Architecture at Monash University, and of course researchers and partners from Monash University, University of Indonesia, Padjadjaran University, CSIRO and the Swiss Federal Institute of Aquatic Science and Technology, and to all other officials from various levels of government. It's an absolute pleasure to join you here today and to represent the state of Victoria in this partnership. As has been acknowledged, we're very proud to support Monash University in its project and partnership with many of you to address the environmental challenges at Citarum River and to be one of our leading Study Melbourne Research Partnership Grant recipients. As a state, we have built deep capability across government, education and industry around livability in how to create and support a sector that includes areas such as water management, planning and urban design, clean tech and environmental solutions. So I can think of no more worthy project than this, addressing the challenges around and the opportunities around the river and the community of the Citarum River. As our own experiences taught us, livability is not a given, and it's certainly much more than a slogan. Melbourne was not always as vibrant and livable city as it is today, and the Yarra River, which runs through our city, has also experienced some challenges along the way as we moved through our development journey. But it's been through a deliberate strategy by policymakers and active participation of all community members that we transformed and improved our natural and built assets. And it's one of the great things in my job as Commissioner for Victoria to Southeast Asia to be tasked to work with our institutions, our researchers and our companies to actively bring this knowledge and know-how to global audiences, particularly how we work together as government, universities, business and community to address and create livable cities and livable communities. We believe that by sharing our expertise globally, we're not only imparting some of our knowledge, but we're also learning from what's happening in many other parts of the world. And in doing so, we want to bring that best practice and those ideas back to Victoria. Can I also use this opportunity to congratulate the team, Professor Diego Ramirez and the Informal Cities Lab team. This roadmap and the proposal which you're putting forward marks a very important milestone in the project. And it does look to be something that has been developed with solutions that fit the local context and the cultural needs of West Java, drawing on expertise across many different discipline areas. Can I also express my thanks and gratitude to the Provincial Government of West Java for their friendship and hospitality. Without active participation and cooperation from the Provincial Government, this project would not have been possible in the first place. Victorian Government is absolutely committed to our relationship with West Java and is keen on growing our friendship between the two regions. and this project is one of our signature projects to date. I personally look forward to visiting the region shortly and to meeting with the Governor and his team, and to pass on my thanks for their continuous support. We are also very keen to formalise our partnership in the coming months to confirm not just this project, but many more that will support lives and livelihoods in the region. Thank you once again, and look forward to learning more about the project.
Thank you, Ms. Rebecca Ho. Baik Bapak Ibu, saya akan menggunakan bahasa. Kami mengucapkan terima kasih kepada Sekretaris Provinsi Jawa Barat sudah berkenan untuk hadir. Kami mempersilahkan Bapak Dr. Setiawan Wangsaatmadja apabila ingin meninggalkan ruangan Zoom meeting untuk melanjutkan agenda selanjutnya. Terima kasih Bapak Dr. Setiawan Wangsaatmadja.
Baik, terima kasih.
Ladies and gentlemen, the next session is the presentations of the speakers who will report the latest development of their research on revitalizing the Citarum River and its communities to the West Java government. This includes also their presentations on key insights and evidence from R&D activities in 2021 until 2022 that support the pilot demonstration. During these sessions, the first presentation will be delivered by Professor Diego Ramirez, the Director Informal Cities Lab and Director of Citarum Action Research Program at Monash Art Design and Architecture, who will talk with respect to key recommendation of the research project. Professor Diego Ramirez, time is yours.
Well, thank you very much, terima kasih, and very good afternoon to all of you. I am absolutely delighted to be here. It's wonderful to be here speaking on behalf of the team. I'm going to share my screen. And first of all, thank you very much to Rebecca Hall for those great words. We are absolutely delighted to be supported by the Victorian State Government. They've been a really great supporter and partner in the project. Thank you very much also to Dr. Setiawan for those great words and an introduction to some of the challenges of the Citarum River, and to Dr. Linda Amin from BP2D, who's also been a key partner. So this event marks really the completion of almost sort of 3 years of research, the last year of which has been in particular funded by the Victorian State Government. And we've been looking into developing a roadmap, an understanding and a roadmap for different ways of addressing the social, biophysical, and economic challenges of the Citarum River. So this research, all these activities have been supported, have been developed by a coalition of partners, of really passionate and talented people that include government, both from the Australian government, from the Indonesian government at central government level and provincial government in particular, and also now local government, from BP2D, of course, from DLH, our academic partners from Monash University, of course. We've got presentations coming from a number of our key researchers, Professor Tony Wong, Professor Robin, Dr. Paris Hatfield, and behind the scenes, Dr. Jane Holden, who has been absolutely instrumental in coalescing all of this work. Our international university partners and international partners generally with UNPAD and our founding partner, University of Indonesia, with whom we share a really productive and fruitful collaborations for many years now. Of course, also the CSIRO from Australia and EWAG, or the Swiss Federal Institute of Aquatic Science. So we're going to be really discussing and presenting the research findings that were presented to the governor of West Java, His Excellency Ridwan Kamil. This was discussed a little bit earlier by Bu Linda. He was fully supportive and endorsed these recommendations. He was very excited by the activities, and so I'm going to try and quickly outline. Just give you a quick outline of the vision of the project, of the revitalization vision. I will talk about the 4 recommendations that were made to the governor, and we'll finish with the proposed immediate next steps that we are trying to undertake for operationalizing this vision. So the presentation today really is structured around a kind of active position of how do we take the research of the last 2-3 years and turn it into action, into operationalizing these concepts on the ground with communities. So in order to clean and improve the river, we really need to address the multiple sources of pollution affecting it, both solid and liquid waste. And of course, in order to do so, we have to address the communities and the broader catchment around the river. Our vision is structured around 5 interconnected objectives. The first is to improve water and sanitation services, to tackle the more invisible but very harmful source of pollution coming from lack of sanitation. To do so, we are proposing to use nature-based green infrastructure to clean wastewater from households, village industry, and livestock. The second objective, to improve solid waste services, where we will use gray and smart solutions for recovering waste at source and in the river, waste separation, and connecting to circular waste utilization services. The third objective is about microeconomy promotion, very important, particularly as we come out of COVID. We've seen how important the economic conditions of these communities is. Using circular economy solutions for green products, services, water, and energy to enhance community economic outcomes. The fourth objective focuses on waterway restoration. And we focus on oxbow lake environments in the main, where we aim to restore aquatic habitats through control of flow velocity, geomorphic form of the waterway, stream bank stabilization, and rehabilitation of ecological habitat. The fifth objective is climate change adaptation, which includes strategies for regional flood management and drought through the creation of wetlands, as well as the reinstatement of threatened habitats. So these strategies need to be addressed, and they play out in some way at different scales, but what we're trying to tackle is the scale of the village, or desa, where infrastructure and revitalization responses are adapted to the particular needs and issues of the local village context to cumulatively address the health of the whole river catchment one by one. So having explained this vision, I'll move now to the recommendations that were endorsed by the governor. So the first recommendation was to continue the intensive development of the shared vision and refinement of the revitalization roadmap. So the roadmap has different timescales. The whole of catchment revitalization is really a 50+ year endeavor. But this can be supported in the medium term by implementing what we're calling the ecological master plan. And I'll show you a little bit more of that, which is a 20-year undertaking. In the shorter term, in the next 3 to 5 years, we can focus more on the delivery of demonstration pilots within strategic locations of the ecological master plan as proof of concept of the different elements of the vision. So to support the implementation of this research, we are proposing a research and implementation hub as a type of living laboratory that will provide a vehicle for operationalizing the proofs of concepts, for monitoring and evaluation, for learning and adaptation, for the production of data, and most importantly, evidence for replication and scaling. And an important aspect of this, of course, training and capacity building. So our demonstration area is in the Citarik Ecowisata site, in the peri-urban edge of the city of Bandung, spanning approximately 2.5 kilometers with over 1,200 households, schools, agriculture, and livestock. It faces a range of significant wastewater and solid waste challenges, as well as flooding and drought. It is a good representative case of the broader challenges faced by the broader Citarum. Here, we join forces with government around the creation of a tourist destination with a number of activities that will support river revitalization whilst supporting local economic development. The second recommendation, as endorsed by the government, is to implement the ecological landscape master plan. This has been developed to complement, again, the Ecowisata Citarik project, and it supports a 20-year vision for the revitalization of the demonstration area around 5 principles that relate to the 5 key objectives of the vision: waterway and riparian restoration, forest restoration and nature-based recreation, productive landscapes, urban biomimicry and nature-based solutions for water, and regional flood management, water quality improvement, and habitat wetlands. Our third recommendation relates to the third time scale in the shorter term, is to develop a proof of concept of pilot demonstrations that can operationalize the strategy and deliver evidence of the approach to be developed more broadly in other locations. So the 3 pilots that we are proposing, and in fact, the way that today's webinar has been structured around these 3 pilots, and in fact, it's a 4th with a social governance model at the center, are zero waste discharge, circular economy waste reuse, and waterway rehabilitation. So zero waste discharge is about eliminating waste and pollution of the river by strengthening the TPS3R and SANIMAS solutions. These will be advanced by extending technologies and developing community design social governance models catalyzed by ecotourism. The second, circular economy waste reuse, develops and implements operational and business enablers for community-based enterprises to create value from waste, incentivize waste management, and generate new local jobs, micro businesses, and markets. The third, waterway rehabilitation, is about regenerating nature and building climate resilience by restoring the river oxbows and ecological habitats of wetlands, waterways, and riparian zones. The fourth and final recommendation to the governor is really to seed the transition of communities toward a local circular economy through capacity building, funding of basic infrastructure, enabling community co-design, incentivizing behavior change, and related to this, incentivizing community action. So our immediate next steps are project endorsement of the ecological master plan and interlinking pilots, which we have received from the governor and also from BAPEDA at provincial level that has incorporated the ecological master plan into their medium-term planning scheme. The securing of funding for infrastructure for the development of the detailed engineering designs for oxbow revitalization, TPS3R waste infrastructure, SANIMAS sanitation infrastructure, and we have in fact achieved about $500,000 of funding from different government sources, from BAPEDA and BBWS at West Java province, and from Cipta Karya in central government. So that is wonderful. The next step, immediate step, will be to seek funding for the Research and Implementation Hub to measure impact and develop the evidence base for replication and scaling. And finally, to co-design the pilot demonstrations for infrastructure and social innovation. Okay, so that brings me to the end of my presentation. And as I mentioned, this has been a very significant team effort from a whole range of different partners, some of which you see in on the slide. So I'd like to really thank them for this incredible year of working together. And now I believe we will begin the first pilot presentation, which is around the waterway rehabilitation. So in this presentation, I will start by talking a little bit about the function of oxbows in river systems. We will then hear by the very excellent Dr. Dwinanti Martanti from civil engineering from Universitas Indonesia, and then from Dr. Kartika Kirana from UNPAD, who has been instrumental in developing these kind of biophysical understandings of the river. And then I'll bring it back to how we understand these concepts, this data in addressing the vulnerability of waterway to the contamination, flood, and drought in the pilot. So I'll start with this, again, jumping to the ecological master plan, the principles of which I outlined in the last presentation. But for this second recommendation for the implementation of the ecological master plan, it will be really important to consider the vulnerability of the area to flood, drought, and of course, pollution or contamination pathways. So the river has transformed quite a lot in the last 15 or so years. The landscape and river morphology, in fact, has changed dramatically as the tributaries have been channelized, losing natural habitats that perform critical ecosystem services. As a result of this channelization, many oxbows have been created from the remaining meanders of the river that have been cut off in order to regulate and divert the flow of the Citarum. This also, of course, has happened in the Citarum River, and over time, the infrastructure deficit of the settlements in the catchment area, the existing high environmental dependency, the effects of climate change, urbanization, and the water flow regulation works have severely disturbed and degraded the natural environment of the basin. So poor sanitation conditions in this area, combined with small industry and agricultural activities, are a threat to water quality, to the environment of the tributary, and of course, to the broader basin. So despite this, oxbows still present relatively preserved ecosystems, including water bodies, vegetation, and mature trees, worthy to be sustained and enhanced. In order to protect the Citarum catchment, oxbows can provide a range of ecosystem services which can mitigate the impacts of flood, drought, and contamination. They function as natural habitat for aquatic and terrestrial life, provide flood detention, infiltration to recharge aquifers, and biofiltration to cleanse the surface water. And now I will hand over to my colleague, Dr. Dwinanti Martanti. The floor is yours.
Thank you. So we'll continue for the hydrological values of oxbows. Here we are promoting the role of oxbows here. So in this picture here, we position the oxbows in the catchment and the impact of loss oxbow on the bigger system. Bigger system here in the Citarum watershed, and the lower one is the Citarum sub-watershed. The hydrological value of oxbows as subcatchment and Citarum catchment scales of Citarum. Citarum sub-watershed lies the most at the most upper watershed of Citarum. So it's in the eastern side of the Bandung area, and Bandung Metro here are lies of in this area, including Kota Bandung, Kabupaten Bandung, Kabupaten Bandung Barat, and Kota Cimahi. There are 14 oxbows that remain disconnected from the Citarum River within the Bandung Metro area. As for the eco-wisata Citarum, as in the previous slides, is that we are focusing on the oxbows. There are 3 oxbows in that area. So for a bigger scale, the hydrology of the area and impact of changing land use and rainfall and impact of the loss of oxbows here, we are starting from the analysis of land use at the sub watershed of Citarum. So in here, we can see that can you next, Pak Diego? So in here, for the analysis of the land use of Citarum sub-watershed, the area is still dominated by the forest and agriculture, but the impervious area is increasing. Now we are using about 32% of impervious area. So this is the map here. Is confirmed by geophysical and geological surveys at eco-wisata area, and then we will use that as a base map for groundwater and flood simulations. In the Citarum sub-watershed, land cover is dominated by agriculture about 40%, and followed by forest, built-up area, shrub, benland, industrial, and water bodies. And then this survey is done to determine the key parameter such as infiltration rate, soil types, and so on. Can you next, please? So for the groundwater simulation here, it is based on hydrogeological formation of the Citarum upper catchment area. That it can be shown here that the area, it is from like a bowl where the Bandung Plateau is surrounded by mountainous area. As seen on the slide, Bandung Metro and Citarum sub-watershed area are dominated by old sedimentary rock layer and mostly clay soil characteristics. In here, we are using for a bigger scale for the subsurface system. Is that is based on geological formation and rivers, as on the right picture. And then for this right picture is the representation of the map for groundwater simulation for pattern and the flow pattern of groundwater. In here, we simulated the area by Motro, and we use that information to predict the discharging or flooding locations based to the geological characteristic. It is represented by the blue area on the white figures. Can you please next, Pak Diego? And for the simulation for surface water, we are using HECRAS here. We use this information based on the rainfall data and also GIS data and also geophysical and geological surveys by the UNPA team. In here, to demonstrate the compounding impact of changing land use, rainfall, and also channelization. The blue area represents the potential for flood area, where on the upper rows, it is for sub watershed of Citarik, and the lower row here, it is for ekowisata Citarik level or scale here. So in here, we would like to see the connection between the surface water and groundwater system. Can you push next, Pak Diego? Based on that information, and also including from other maps, we can predict and quantify the potential area for nature-based solution, such as biofiltration and constructed wetland. This is information to be used for decision making, especially to uphold to support the existing of oxbows, the existing oxbows for water resource management and also flood and drought disaster mitigation in the Citarik sub-watershed. I think that is from me, Pak Diego.
Thank you very much, Buanti. So now we'll hear from Butika. Thank you, Butika. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Pak Diego. So, as talking about the changing in land use in the previous slide, so naturally, as you can see in the picture, that there is a sedimentation deposition within the channel. But naturally, sedimentation can cause by erosion. Changes in land use and human activities affect the runoff of sedimentation rates. The greater the sedimentation rate, the smaller the water capacity in the river. It makes the problem in the field area. Please next, Pak Diego. So in this picture, we can see that the river contains a high level of total dissolved solids compared with the upstream area, with the concentration of the particulate matter in the central zone of the river within the study area. Although the results do not exceed the threshold value, the river water is highly polluted, not suitable as a potable water supply for the villages. So from our research interviews, we know that the villagers use surface water as their water supply. So since there is a potential interaction between the river water and surface water, this indicates that the surface water may also be contaminated. The study of sediment sample from the oxbow also showed a pollution load index greater than 1, that indicating the soil is potentially toxic or contaminated and contributing to an unhealthy environment. There may be special requirement for handling the soil when rehabilitating the oxbow waterways. Please next, Diego. And the geophysical characteristic of the land also contribute to climate vulnerability. Electrical resistivity acquisition show that the soil subsurface contain an impermeable layer around 100 meters depth, meaning that rainwater will accumulate on the surface during torrential or prolonged rainfall, and does not meet groundwater replenishment needs to provide a continuous supply of water during prolonged dry seasons. So residents already observed that their groundwater supply from the shallow aquifer is inconsistent with scarcity experienced in the dry season. Next, please. And the groundwater also sampled from 29 duct wells. Tests show that it also contains high level of total dissolved solid. So residents observe also that the water taken from shallow duct wells is unclean or discolored, reinforcing that this is poorly filtered by clay dominant soil. So that's enough from UNPA team. Thank you, Pak Diego.
Thank you, Butika. So this information then is adapted, used to inform the waterway rehabilitation pilot, which we see an example of here. So vulnerability to climate and poor health are addressed through the waterway rehabilitation pilot. By diverting river storm and wastewater into a rehabilitated oxbow, we can demonstrate the potential for building resilience to climate while at the same time remove pollutants from the water before discharging into the river or replenishing groundwater aquifers. The approach, co-design and co-implementation, training and support to provide local and national stakeholders with capacities and tools to generate solutions that are tailored to the specific needs encountered, which is part of the social governance pilot, as well as turning the oxbows from risks as they are now to public health and livelihood into ecosystem service providers for the Citarik and for potentially the broader Citarum. So by restoring and enhancing the hydrologic and ecologic functions of the oxbows, these water bodies have the potential to become, again, ecosystem service providers. So that's it from our team. Thank you very much. We'll now hear from the second pilot team. Back to you, Bu Ratna.
Thank you to Mr. Ramirez. Now, ladies and gentlemen, is the Q&A session. You can submit your question via the Q&A function on Zoom at any time during this webinar. And let me see. And there is one question from Muhammad Kurniawan Al-Fadi. The question is it still possible to build the ecosystem if there are still connections between oxbow and the river? Maybe Ibu Reni can answer, right?
Yeah, maybe we can try and answer. Yes, I think the answer is yes. The key lies in ensuring that the oxbows, which currently are in at least in our demonstration area and in some of the broader area that Buanti was looking at with the subcatchment, that they are not well looked after. They are disconnected, so they can both be either reconnected to the existing river through physical interventions of groundworks or connecting through pipes. But it is key that you have water flow as the starting point of rehabilitation. So we have been exploring how that can be done, and then reinstating a whole of the flora and I guess the vegetation of the oxbows that has been degraded over time. So we believe it is absolutely possible. There are some land issues, and in some instances, of course, communities have built over the oxbows, and this needs to be handled very carefully. However, there are different ways of reconnecting through new pathways, as it were, back to the river, and still respecting those communities, but still rehabilitating the water body. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Diego Ramirez. Is there any question for Mr. Diego Ramirez or Mrs. Dwinanti and Mrs. Kartika? Okay, I think we can move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can move on. There's a question about fertilizer, but we might leave that one until later on. I think it'll be addressed in some of the other presentations.
Oh, that's okay. That's one question for Mr. Diego, I think. From Ihsan Naufan, can we quantify the effects of excessive use of fertilizer in paddy field around the river ecosystem, and what could be done to minimize that?
Yeah, as an architect, I might let some of my other colleagues answer that. Buanti or Butika, what's your sense of that question?
Yeah, I will have Pak Diego to answer that. Yes, we can quantify that. That is why we already set up all the base information to simulate and to quantify the correct correlation between the contamination of fertilizer from the paddy field into the river. So the point is that we can quantify it, yes. And what could be done to minimize it? There is another issues how to minimize it. So in order to minimize it, we need several strategies here. For the because from the point of view of quantification, that the minimizing, of course, we need to reduce this from the source. That is the most effective way. But we also realize that it's not easy. That is why we need several others to help us to work together. Yeah, how to minimize the excessive use of fertilizer based on such as the behavior of the farmer, how to use the fertilizer, and then from the training from the government how to use the wise way of fertilizer to the paddy field and so on. I think that's for me, Pak Diego.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so thank you, Bu Rattan, back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Diego Ramirez, Mrs. Dwinanti, and Mrs. Kartika. Now is the next presentations will be delivered by Mr. Tony Wong, the chair of the Water Sensitive Cities think tank, that will talk about zero waste discharge and circular economy pilots. Mr. Tony Wong, time is yours.
Good afternoon, and thank you for your introduction, Bu Ratna. I'd like to now commence by sharing my screen and introduce the team that will be delivering a lot of the results of their research up to this point. As you can see on the screen, this part of the presentation is really looking at some of the more detail of water quality management in the rivers and what are the initiatives that can be done. Members of the team, as you can see on the screen, cuts across many of our collaborating partners from universities in Indonesia, from the CSIRO, from university out in AWAC, and also private sector pro-BSF. I think I'll start by making the point that the pollution problem in the Citarum River is very well understood. It is understood at multiple levels, and there have been significant investment to try and clean that up, as we heard from the opening keynote speech today. And the pollution that we see really is symptomatic of the type of changes in land use, increasing in population density in the Citarum River Basin. We also heard in the second presentation just now about how the changes in hydrology and runoff quality have also led to some of the symptoms of pollution. All of that impact on waterway health, as you can imagine. In terms of looking at the type of possible initiatives that we have in reducing the pollution, we really need to look at the sources of pollution and the types of pollution that are occurring in the Citarum River and in its tributaries. Perhaps there might be 4 types of pollution that are key to the degradation of the Citarum River. Poor sewage management in terms of the practice of open defecation, and also largely ineffective or poorly performing wastewater treatment facilities. And most of them are related not to the major cities in the Citarum River Basin, but actually in many of the villages and settlements. And there are over 600 villages in the Citarum River Basin. There's, of course, the solid waste, the pollution that we see, the pollution that created all those initiatives that we heard from government to want to clean up the Citarum River. And the part of possible solutions that we may have, of course, linked to how we can foster community behavior to better management of solid waste, how we can promote recycling through local and regional recycling facility, which is something that the Indonesian government are already doing, but perhaps it is less effective in many of the villages. How do we look at pollution abatement interventions in terms of trapping the solid waste that are actually in the waterways? And of course, good practices such as the elimination of single-use plastics are also very important initiatives. And we'll look at some of them. Industrial pollution is also a major source of pollution. Even though much of our work to date is not focusing on that, we need to acknowledge that the industrial pollution is a significant source of pollution in the Citarum River river basin. Now, of course, we heard about agricultural runoff, the use of fertilizers, and the notion that they, in fact, can contribute significant nutrients into our waterways. And there's good practice that we can introduce in terms of sustainable agricultural water management, the reuse of high nutrient waters back into agricultural land use. So for us to understand some of those contexts and different sources of pollutant, we need to actually do an initial analysis to understand the existing wastewater and solid waste system, characterize the type of waste and the quantity of waste that are generated from different land use. To do that, I'd like to now invite Dr. Cindy Priadi from University Indonesia to deliver her presentation.
Okay, thank you, Tony. Izin Bapak Ibu mungkin bisa, karena saya akan presentasi dalam bahasa Indonesia, mungkin Bapak Ibu yang berbahasa Indonesia bisa kembali ke original audio untuk langsung mendengar suara saya. Baik, terima kasih Bapak Ibu, saya dari Universitas Indonesia mewakili beberapa tim saya, Pak Diraga dan Pak Osha akan mempresentasikan hasil temuan kami tentang air limbah dan limbah padat. Oke, next. Oke, jadi yang akan kami presentasikan ini adalah hasil temuan di lapangan yang di mana kami melakukan observasi, wawancara, pengambilan sampel langsung di lapangan seperti yang Bapak Ibu lihat selama 8 hari mengikuti SNI dan juga analisis data sekunder untuk limbah padat dan limbah cair selama tahun 2022. Next. Jadi jadi memang seperti yang tadi Pak Tony bilang, sudah sampaikan bahwa air limbah berasal dari berbagai sumber. Kalau dari segi peternakan itu sudah, untuk yang unggas ini kebetulan sudah diolah, mungkin agak berbeda dengan yang tadi Dr. Setiawan Pak Sekda sampaikan ya, karena relatif kering sehingga mudah dikumpulkan dan dijual sebagai pupuk, sedangkan mungkin yang lebih menjadi kekhawatiran adalah limbah dari perikanan yang langsung dibuang ke Citarik mengandung nutrien dan padatan yang organik yang tinggi. Kemudian ada limbah domestik tentunya yang seperti biasanya rumah tangga lainnya, black waternya atau air limbah toiletnya diolah dengan septic tank, namun tetap ada supernatannya atau airnya yang terbuang ke drainase bersamaan dengan air limbah cucian atau grey water. Diperkirakan debitnya itu sekitar 1000 meter kubik grey water atau air limbah cucian dan 230 meter kubik black water per harinya. Ini semua menjadi satu sebenarnya bergabung dengan air limbah pertanian karena sama-sama mengalir ke saluran irigasi yang di air limbah pertanian membawa air larian dari pupuk. Tadi juga sudah dibahas dengan Bu Winanti ya isu pupuk, dan juga tadi yang di Q&A ada yang mengangkat isu serupa. Jadi memang isu nutrien yang tinggi ini yang kemudian bisa menimbulkan eutrofikasi dan juga dampak-dampak lainnya ini perlu diperhatikan. Selanjutnya, slide selanjutnya. Nah, ini kalau terkait air limbah, sedangkan kalau terkait limbah padat, dari segi observasi kami melihat memang sebenarnya melihat segala spektrum gitu ya Bapak Ibu. Ada tentunya sudah ada usaha yang dilakukan oleh masyarakat dan pemerintah terkait pengelolaan sampah. Misalnya kami sudah melihat di titik 4, 5, 6 adanya lapak-lapak yang mengumpulkan sampah daur ulang. Kemudian kami juga melihat sudah ada TPS misalnya di titik 2 dan 3, meskipun salah satu TPS ini punya tungku yang tidak terpakai secara optimal, dan juga TPS 3 ini nanti kita akan bahas lebih lanjut memiliki kondisi yang memang perlu kita tangani bersama-sama. Okay, next slide. Nah, dari hasil temuan kami melakukan pengukuran di level rumah tangga dan juga di level TPS, Bapak Ibu, selama 8 hari mengikuti SNI, dan kami melihat bersama dengan hasil wawancara dan hasil observasi, di level rumah tangga timbulan sampahnya sekitar 0,5 kg per orang per hari. Ini masuk ke dalam range rata-rata nasional ya di 0,5 sampai 0,7. Namun ketika itu diangkut dengan segala macam sistem yang sebenarnya dibuat oleh masyarakatnya sendiri, jadi berbasis masyarakat dengan berbagai jenis pengangkutan, akhirnya hanya sekitar 20% yang berakhir di TPS Mekar Mukti gitu ya Bapak Ibu. Artinya dari rumah tangga yang diangkut ini ada 80% yang kita belum tahu persis sampahnya kemana. Ada sebagian yang memang diangkut lapak, misalnya karena sampah daur ulang. Ada sebagian yang misalnya sampah makanan itu langsung diberikan ke ternak atau misalnya hewan peliharaan, ayam. Namun mungkin banyak sampah yang akan berakhir di lingkungan. Nanti akan dijelaskan oleh rekan saya, Denis dari Sairo, lebih jauh lagi. And then next, Tony. Nah, kalau kita lihat diagram alirnya Bapak Ibu, rekan-rekan sekalian, memang tadi kita sudah lihat dari rumah tangga yang kita sampel, kita perkirakan hanya 20% yang masuk ke TPS. Tapi lebih jauhnya lagi sebenarnya tidak semua rumah tangga diangkut sampahnya. Jadi hanya sekitar 60% rumah tangga, atau kalau kita lihat dari level timbulan sampah yang sebenarnya masuk ke TPS gitu ya Bapak Ibu. Sedangkan sisanya secara teori gitu ya, ini secara teori, padahal tadi yang 60% ada sebagian yang terbuang ke lingkungan gitu ya Bapak Ibu. Nah kemudian namun 40% sisanya itu membuang ke TPS lain di Majalaya, ada yang dibakar di Tungku 25%, yang ini pun kami melihat kontrol emisinya masih sangat terbatas. Kemudian ada pembakaran open burning gitu ya di level rumah tangga itu sekitar 10%, dan ada yang membuang secara liar khususnya di 1 RW ini sekitar 4%. Nah, jadi memang berlapis-lapis gitu ya tantangannya. Pertama, tidak semuanya diangkut ke TPS, dan bahkan rumah tangga yang diangkut pun tidak semua sampah akhirnya dari rumah tangga tersebut berakhir di TPS. Okay, next. Nah, kalau kita melihat lebih jauh lagi, sebenarnya apa sih isi sampah-sampah itu? Next slide, please. memang kalau dilihat dari segi berat atau volume hasilnya agak sedikit berbeda ya, karena misalnya sampah organik seperti sampah makanan atau sampah halaman itu biasanya berat jenisnya lebih tinggi. Jadi kalau dilihat di sebelah kiri komposisi dilihat dari berat, memang sampah makanan itu kalau di rumah tangga komposisinya nomor 1. Tapi kalau kita mau melihat dari volume, dan biasanya kalau kita melakukan pengelolaan sampah, biasanya kita fokus di volume ya, karena menentukan volume gerobak, volume truk, volume TPA gitu ya biasanya. Maka kita bisa lihat bahwa isu plastik yang sebenarnya paling utama sesuai dengan yang sebenarnya tadi kita angkat dari awal, pas kita juga sampaikan dari awal ya, isu plastik ini yang meskipun ringan, tapi dalam jumlah yang sangat banyak dia bisa volumenya sangat besar. Nah, pada teorinya ini ada LDPE, HDPE, multilayer. Mungkin Bapak Ibu yang belum terlalu familiar dengan jenis-jenis plastik, bisa kita lihat next. LDPE, HDPE ini pada prinsipnya adalah kresek dan kantong plastik gitu ya, kantong plastik kemasan. Ada multilayer yang berupa sachet, ada residu yang juga sebagian ada plastik-plastik dan styrofoam. Nah ini yang perlu menjadi concern kita. Kita lihat bagaimana nanti setelah ini dipresentasikan oleh Denis berakhir di lingkungan, dan Tony akan menggambarkan bagaimana pengelolaannya. So, sekian dari saya, Tony. Bapak Ibu, setelah ini presentasinya akan dalam bahasa Inggris, sehingga Bapak Ibu bisa switch ke channel bahasa Inggris.
Thank you so much, Bu Cindy. I think it's really important to note the incredibly important collaborative nature of the work that we've been doing today. And so I was fortunate with the team we were working with, names listed here and many, many others, to be able to follow on and to really complement that detailed work that Bu Cindy and her team were able to undertake. Next slide. And to put a little bit of context around what we were doing, we as a team have been building a substantial research area to be able to count and estimate and monitor how much of different kinds of waste leaks out into the environment in a variety of different contexts, in countries and with partners around the world. Next slide. And really excitingly for this work, we were able to hone in with great detail in a very rigorous and robust way to try to count how much of different kinds of waste are getting out there. And that allows us to complement the work that others were doing, where we're looking at households and looking at waste generation and looking at capture, and then to be able to see where, if waste is leaking into the environment, where is it going, so that we can understand the hotspots and help to be able to put some information as a baseline, so that as the additional work grows and continues, we can measure change. Next. So within this focal area, we actually carried out surveys at 112 sites with more than 340 different transects in total. And we looked in the inland areas away from the river. We looked along the river very closely, and then we did some focal work at some of those oxbows. Next. And what was really interesting and important to note, when we look back and see that only 20% of the waste is ending up in the TPS sites that Bu Cindy and her team noted, we recorded over 14,000 items, and we found that the amount of debris, and largely plastic, is much, much higher. It's over 2.5 times higher at our river sites. And so that gives us really important information as we look at interventions, as we look at new opportunities, which Pak Tony will talk about in just a moment. Next slide. As Bu Cindy also noted, particular types of items were really common within the households, and we see many of these reflected in what we find in the environment, in the inland areas along the river and waterway that were surveyed. And those were food wrappers, so soft plastics, thin film carry bags, and those two items together, along with bricks and cement, comprised most of the litter that we found in the environment, along rivers and in our inland survey areas also. Next slide. Importantly, when we looked in those focal areas of the oxbows, they are not meant to be waste disposal locations, but we found a tremendous amount of waste in those areas as well. And the majority of that was soft plastics packaging. So that's some of the sachets, some of the other food packaging and things that Bu Cindy was mentioning previously. Next slide. I think what's really exciting is you're now going to hear from Pak Tony, who's going to help to frame this and be able to talk about how is this broad scale information and this really detailed information that was gathered by these different teams able to be brought together to identify some of those important circular economy opportunities where we can keep the benefits local and look at the exciting opportunities for zero waste communities and the appropriate incentives to make that work. Back to you, Pak Tony. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bu Denise. And I'd like to now perhaps try and frame through the information that we've collected to date, and really talk through some of the strategies that we have developed as a result of that. We've heard that the data collected have indicated that not all households participates in waste collection, nor do they, in fact, dispose of their waste at the proper places. Many, more than 80% of the waste are either disposed in other parts of the community, perhaps in the river, perhaps in the oxbow lakes, or incinerated privately. All of that actually adds to significant environmental pollution, whether it is waterway pollution, land pollution, or air pollution. Waste dumping and incineration so close to urban settlements will invariably impact on the health of the people and the environment. And to improve the environmental quality of the rivers, the current informal system of waste management will need to be upgraded. So in considering the data that we have received, we have framed our strategy to achieve a net zero waste discharge. This is aspirational, but there are transitional steps that we can take to get to that ultimate goal. To do this, we need to improve the sewage management, the agricultural runoff management, and also to encourage community-level recycling of both the organic and inorganic waste. We will build this strategy by strengthening the performance of conventional waste management infrastructure. Our program has been pledged funding from Bapenas for 2 TPS-3R and 2 Sanimas systems to form the building block for co-design of extended community waste management system. The location, design, and function of this TPS-3Rs and Sanimas infrastructure will be developed through a participatory co-design process with key stakeholders in the community and local government. We are also proposing to further strengthen the performance of this conventional infrastructure. To do this, we are looking at how we can co-locate innovative solutions next to this infrastructure. The zero waste discharge pilot, as we heard from Professor Diego, will involve key stakeholders and experts across academic, local government, community, NGOs, and practitioners working together to share, learn, build, and adapt the pilot and create a holistic solution for improved solid waste and sanitation services in the 2 villages of Sibodas and Palamukti. This involves work in behavior change and community engagement, work in economic feasibility of solid waste collection and wastewater treatment, how we can innovate in the location, design, and functions of the TPS 3Rs and SANIMAS. This we refer to as the TPS 3R++ and SANIMAS++. The technology and the processes in the adaptation of this, and of course the measurement and the evaluation of the impact of this innovation so that we can develop strategies for mainstreaming throughout the Citarum River Basin. So our objective in our pilot study is, again, to extend the standard TPS 3Rs and SANIMAS system, to co-design the TPS 3Rs and SANIMAS systems into ++, to build 2 TPS 3R++ and 2 SANIMAS++, so that we can measure and evaluate their impact on the community and the river, and to create new knowledge and evidence of their performance and change and potential change, so that we can upscale and replicate this into other villages in the Citarum Basin. The concept of a circular economy really helps us to understand how this initiative can be delivered. Because it's fair to say that while setting up initiatives for recovering and recycling waste is a widely acknowledged approach, finding the enabling environment to create a viable and sustainable system of recycling remains the biggest challenge, particularly in villages and towns throughout the basin. Within the context of Cibodas and Padamukti villages, aligning the net zero strategy and the circular economy approach with the Eco-Wisata initiative appears to be the most opportunistic way to create incentives for transitioning to a circular economy. I think it's important for us to recognize that the concept of a circular economy, in fact, is well established, but it is often only practiced in big cities. What is missing if we continue down simply looking at circular economy in big cities is that we would have missed 70% of the population that are actually living in villages and small towns within the Citarum Basin. And therefore, our concept of a circular economy is very much about what I refer to as a small c circular economy. And that small c circular economy really is about how we can simplify a lot of the processes and simplify the cost of transport of recycled material to ensure that there is a local market that will sustain such small c circular economy. And there are a range of products that are available and a range of processes that could be instigated in such a small c circular economy processes. They could introduce nature-based solutions, as you heard from Professor Diego mention, in improving the waste management. The improved waste management would actually then lead to the delivery of safer, cleaner water that could be reused for horticultural and agricultural use. Plastics could be recycled, whereby we could have a range of activities whereby there is incentive for communities to separate their waste and to recycle the plastics into recycled products, such as we can see in this diagram over here. In this case, I'd like to also make mention of the local recycling industry that are active and vibrant in West Java. In the city of Bandung, for instance, the precious plastic initiatives are processing plastics into material that could then be used for reuse and to create new plastic products, as you can see on the slide here. We also see that there are initiatives, which we will hear later, about how we can recycle food waste and organic waste. And they are the pollution in the river that perhaps causes a significant level of pollution that we don't see, the water quality pollution that leads to eutrophication in our waterways. The notion of looking at how we can turn food waste into composting material into feedstock for agricultural and horticultural and aquaculture use will be something that we would explore further as part of our research work. But as I said previously, the one issue that is the biggest challenge for us is to find the incentive to create the environment for sustainable recycling practice. Within the context of Jeboda and Padamukti villages, we believe that aligning our net zero strategy with the Eco-Wisata initiative appears to be the most opportunistic way to create the incentive for transitioning to a circular economy for the implementation of our net zero waste strategy. The Eco-Wisata Chitrik project is a collaboration between the DJKN and the provincial government of West Java, the Citarum Satgas and Bandung Regency government, and BBWS. It is over the area of 2.3 kilometer section of the Citarum River that Professor Diego have shown previously, and to convert this into a Eco-Wisata showcase to raise and to introduce eco-education and ecotourism around raising environmental awareness, sustainable water management for environmental protection and recreation, and a number of thematic components. These thematic components could in fact showcase the type of recycling circular economy that we talked about. You have seen this slide before as presented from Professor Diego in terms of how we have conceived an ecological landscape master plan for this Eco-Wisata region with 5 key initiatives. Of course, to demonstrate how waterway and riparian areas along the waterways can be restored. And the rehabilitation of the Oxbow waterways is a clear example on how we can restore the ecological health and environmental quality of these waterways. We can also introduce reforestation, restoration of forests, and creation of nature-based recreation as a means of bringing tourists into the area. We will demonstrate productive landscapes and how landscapes, agricultural landscapes can also be a demonstration of sustainable ecological agricultural practices. In the urban areas of the 2 villages, we would demonstrate urban biomimicry and the use of nature-based solutions for water management, for flood management, for drought proofing of the area, and of course, for water quality improvement. And that leads us to our 5th strategy of looking at regional flood management systems for water quality improvements, and also to create habitat wetlands as part of the ecotourism initiative. This is an example, as was shown by Professor Diego, in terms of how we would embark on the demonstration of how we would rehabilitate the Oxbow waterway. There was a question of how do we sustain the ecological value of these Oxbow systems. Connection to the Citarum River is important, but managing its hydrology and protecting it from excessive flood is equally important. The second initiative to promote these ecological values of these systems is to ensure that it has good water quality discharge to it. And to that end, we need to manage wastewater and improve sanitation through the introduction of nature-based solutions is very much part of the solution for the rehabilitation of Oxbow waterways. And of course, the ecological landscapes that promotes sustainable agricultural practice, sustainable aquaculture, introduction of food and local cuisine as a tourist attraction, as well as they improve air and water quality to create healthy and diverse bird and aquatic habitats are all very important elements that really provides the market for the recycling that we talk about, the recycling of organic waste to provide food and fertilizer for organic farming and for agriculture. There's a local market that creates that incentive for recycling. Because it's an ecotourism area, the notion of plastic recycling to create road furniture, to create features and to introduce that into the eco-resata as a demonstration of sustainable waste management is also part of the ecotourism initiative that we talk about. So the alignment of those strategies and government policies actually can deliver a very strong small C circular economy for this area. On that note, I'd like to now invite Dr. Yuda Hadian to talk about how we would start to engage with SMEs in the local area to participate in a circular economy of this region. Over to you, Dr. Hadian.
Thank you, Tony. Izinkan saya menggunakan bahasa Indonesia. Terima kasih atas kesempatannya. Jadi kami peneliti dari Badan Penelitian dan Pengembangan Daerah Provinsi Jawa Barat, saya Yuda Hadianur beserta Dr. Arif Dani Sutadian akan mempresentasikan kajian yang tahun ini tengah berjalan di BP2D dan kebetulan beririsan dengan kajian kerjasama antara Monash University dengan UI terkait dengan ekowisata di daerah Das Citarum, yaitu penerapan konsep ekonomi sirkular pada UMKM di Jawa Barat yang dengan lokus penelitiannya di dua desa, yaitu Desa Padamukti dan Desa Cibodas, Kecamatan Solokan Jeruk, Kabupaten Bandung. Yang kebetulan dua desa tersebut berada di daerah aliran Sungai Citarik yang merupakan anak sungai dari Sungai Citarum. Jadi seperti kita ketahui bersama bahwa UMKM atau industri kecil menengah di Indonesia mempunyai peranan sangat penting bagi pembangunan ekonomi di Indonesia. Sekitar 61% berkontribusi terhadap gross domestic product Indonesia, bahkan 99% total industri di Indonesia merupakan UMKM dan mampu menyerap sampai 97% tenaga kerja di Indonesia. Besaran kontribusi ekonomi tersebut tentunya terkait juga dengan kemungkinan berkontribusi terhadap kerusakan maupun polusi lingkungan yang terjadi akibat produksi di UMKM dan juga penggunaan konsumsi energi yang sangat besar yang selama ini dilakukan oleh UMKM. Di sini di dua desa yang kami lakukan kajian itu, yaitu Desa Padamukti dan Cibodas, kami mengambil sampel 10 UMKM yang terdiri dari 3 UMKM di Padamukti dan 7 di Cibodas, di mana 10 UMKM tersebut diambil dari sekitar 90 UMKM di dua desa tersebut. Kami mengambil sampel berdasarkan peraturan yang dari Kementerian Perindustrian dan BPS, di mana UMKM kita tidak melihat dari asetnya, tapi melihat dari jumlah tenaga kerja yang dikerjakan. Kami mengambil sampel UMKM yang memperkerjakan di sekitar di antara 30% atau ke bawah tenaga kerja, dan juga UMKM yang menghasilkan limbah maupun menggunakan limbah bagi produksinya. Jadi dari situ kami dapat 10 UMKM di dua desa tersebut. UMKM itu terdiri dari 4 usaha tahu, yang kebetulan memang 4 usaha tahu tersebut berada tepat di sisi Sungai Citarik, sehingga limbahnya langsung dialirkan ke sungai. Juga bengkel sepeda, rajutan, 2 kerajinan batok kelapa maupun sangkar burung, industri jamur dan keset. Jamur dan tahu sendiri adalah UMKM yang memang menghasilkan limbah, dan sisanya adalah menggunakan limbah sebagai produksinya. Selanjutnya, next. Awalnya kami menanyakan secara gambar umum kepada mereka mengenai pengetahuan mereka terhadap ekonomi sirkular. Pada dasarnya, hampir seluruh UMKM yang kami tanya di dua desa tersebut tidak mengetahui apa ekonomi sirkular. Tapi pada dasarnya, selama pengerjaan produksi UMKM tersebut, mereka juga melaksanakan poin-poin atau inti-inti yang terdapat dalam ekonomi suka sebagai use, recycle, revalue, reuse, dan refurbish. Jadi mereka dengan tanpa disadari bahwa mereka juga melakukan pengurangan pemakaian material, juga melakukan daur ulang dan memberikan nilai tambah terhadap produksinya. Selanjutnya, next slide, please. Nah, terakhir kami juga melihat model bisnis ekonomi sirkular apa yang mereka laksanakan di 10 UMKM yang kami teliti. Jadi kami melihat dari semuanya apakah mereka menggunakan bahan baku dari limbah. Dari situ juga kami juga ingin melihat dari produksinya, apakah dari hasil produksinya mereka menghasilkan produk secara kualitasnya lebih baik atau juga lebih di bawah dari produksi sebelumnya. Tentunya ini untuk memperbesar pemasaran. Juga kami juga melihat industrial simbiosis, jadi apakah hasil dari produksi UMKM tersebut juga digunakan bagi industri selanjutnya di atasnya. Dan terakhir juga kami melihat collecting services, di mana hanya bengkel sepeda yang memang melakukan pengumpulan barang-barang bekas. Perlu Bapak Ibu ketahui bahwa kajian ini tengah berlangsung, namun ada beberapa rekomendasi sementara yang bisa kami catat di sini. Yaitu pertama adalah bahwa tentunya untuk mengurangi penggunaan energi maupun transportasi yang dilakukan, sudah sebaiknya bahwa UMKM yang ada di 2 desa tersebut menggunakan bahan baku yang memang bisa diambil dari desa tersebut atau desa di sekitarnya. Jadi sehingga bisa memangkas transportasi maupun energi yang mereka keluarkan. Kedua adalah 2 desa tersebut pada Mukti maupun Cibodas di Kecamatan Sorokan Cilok tersebut merupakan sentra industri rumahan makanan kecil di Bandung dan sekitarnya. Jadi jajanan pasar yang dipasarkan di Bandung sekitarnya kebanyakan memang berasal dari mereka. Namun di lain pihak bahwa makanan-makanan yang dipasarkan, makanan kecil yang dipasarkan masih menggunakan bahan baku berbaku plastik untuk kemasannya. Sehingga perlu kesadarannya, perlu didorong bagaimana mereka mulai menggunakan bahan baku ramah lingkungan untuk pembungkus makanan tersebut. Terakhir, tentunya perlunya pendampingan dari stakeholder terkait, baik dari dinas-dinas terkait, dan dinas kabupaten kota maupun provinsi, baik dari DLH, dinas koperasi, dinas perindustrian perdagangan, untuk mendampingi bagaimana mereka bisa meningkatkan kualitas produknya. Dan juga ini yang penting bahwa selama kami melakukan penelitian di sana, banyak keluhan-keluhan dari IKM yang berbasis ekonomi mengenai sulitnya mereka memasarkan produk dari IKM berbasis sirkular. Jadi kita juga perlu mendampingi sampai di hilir produk suatu pemasaran tersebut. Mungkin itu saja pemaparan dari kami, para peneliti dari Badan Penelitian Pengembangan Provinsi Jawa Barat. Terima kasih atas perhatiannya. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Hadian. I'd like to now invite Professor Christian Zilberg from AWAC to introduce the black soldier fly technology for organic waste recycling. Christian,
thank you,
over to you.
Thank you, Tony. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks very much for this opportunity, terima kasih, to just quickly talk about organic waste recycling. But maybe before starting specifically on the area and in our research, maybe to back up a bit. Back in 2014, we had the honor to collaborate in a project called Forward, together with PUPR, the Ministry of Public Works of Indonesia, the city of Sidoarjo and the city of Surabaya, and the Swiss government, to really look at opportunities on how to valorize organic waste. And in the next slide, I would just like to show you a video of the relevance and the opportunities when targeting the organic waste fraction. Next slide, please, Tony.
Selamat ya, Bu.
Selamat buat apa ya, Pak RT?
Ibu sudah dapat memisahkan sampah dengan baik loh. Sampah organik yang diangkut secara terpisah tidak akan membusuk di lingkungan kita, Ibu. Sehingga tidak menimbulkan bau yang mengundang tikus dan menyebarkan penyakit, Ibu.
Ibu, terima kasih telah membantu usaha kami. Ibu telah memberikan sampah organik yang telah terpilah dengan baik, Bu. Kami menggunakan sampah organik sebagai makanan larva black soldier fly, Bu. Yang dimana larva yang telah siap panen, kami gunakan sebagai pakan ayam dan ikan.
Dan juga kesehatan kita. Ibu tahu kalau fraksi sampah terbesar di Indonesia itu adalah sampah organik. Itulah kenapa pengelolaan sampah organik menjadi sangat penting. Dan harus dimulai dari sumbernya, seperti rumah tangga, restoran, perkantoran, mal-mal, sekolahan, atau dari manapun sampah tersebut berasal.
Tapi ini mudah saja kan, Pak? Saya tinggal buang sampah organik seperti kulit buah, sayur, sisa makanan, dan daun-daunan ke tempat sampah yang terpisah.
Atas nama pemerintah kota, kami mengucapkan terima kasih, Ibu. Bertonton sampah organik yang telah dipilah tidak harus dikirim ke TPA semua, sehingga bisa untuk menghemat biaya transportasi dan juga lahan di TPA tentunya.
Thank you. So, as you see, there are a lot of opportunities and a lot of value in valorizing organic waste. And our project focused specifically on one approach, which is the BSF waste processing technology. So where we transform organic waste into protein, which we can use then as animal feed for livestock rearing. And at the end of this project, we had a very good understanding of the BSF technology. We shared these in different workshops, as shown here. Next slide, please. We also produced different training materials. We produced cost models that you can estimate how much setting up a facility, how much return on investment would be possible. And now specifically on the results from our research in the Citarum region, I'll pass the word to Ibu Yuvita to present these results. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon. For all the speaker, let me explain ini bahasa. Untuk Bapak dan Ibu, selamat siang. Silakan menggunakan channel bahasa Indonesianya karena saya akan menjelaskan dalam bahasa Indonesia. Next slide, please, Tony. Oke, jadi kami bersama dengan tim UI melakukan sebuah survei kepada komunitas di desa Cibodas dan juga Padangmukti. Dan dari survei yang telah dilakukan, ada dua hasil yang sangat menarik dan bertolak belakang. Jadi sekitar 94% komunitas bersedia untuk memilah sampahnya dari rumah, asalkan mereka mendapatkan support berupa pembagian bucket atau pendampingan terhadap masyarakat. Namun di sisi lain sebanyak 92% mereka tidak mengetahui sama sekali tentang BSF, baik nilai ekonominya maupun penggunaan BSF ini sebagai alternatif protein untuk pakan ternak maupun penggunaan residu BSF sebagai pupuk alami di dunia pertanian. Selanjutnya, next slide please. Selain survei terhadap komunitas, kami juga melakukan survei terhadap local market, jadi terhadap retailers atau para penjual pakan hewan dan juga kepada para peternak. Jadi dari survei yang telah kami lakukan, semua retailers yang ada di sekitar desa Cibodas dan juga Padangmukti, mereka bersedia dan tertarik untuk menjual produk-produk BSF. Dan mereka saat kita tanya tentang BSF, karena mereka tidak tahu, dan ketika kita tunjukkan fotonya, mereka lebih tertarik untuk menjual larva kering karena mereka takut untuk memegang larva yang masih segar. Dan dari survei tersebut kita dapat mengetahui bahwa buyer preference atau hal yang sangat diutamakan oleh para pembeli di sekitar desa Cibodas dan Padangmukti, mereka sangat brand minded. Jadi mereka sangat mengutamakan merek yang mereka sudah kenal. Nah, ini adalah kedepannya butuh effort yang lebih banyak dari kita para peneliti dan juga pemerintah untuk lebih mengenalkan BASF sehingga mereka lebih mengenal dan mau membeli BASF. Nah, ini adalah serangkaian proses bagaimana kita bisa menerapkan teknologi BASF untuk mengolah sampah organik. Jadi pertama kita perlu melakukan campaign di komunitas, kemudian pembagian bucket, dan kita perlu juga untuk upgrade transportasi pengangkutan sampah karena yang sudah berjalan pengangkutan sampah hanya berlangsung selama sekali dalam seminggu, sehingga banyak sekali sampah organik yang telah terdekompos di rumah-rumah warga, sehingga yang dikirim ke TPS itu sudah membusuk dan tidak terlalu bernutrisi untuk BASF. Nah, setelah itu kita bisa melakukan treatment untuk sampah makanan dengan BASF dan juga sampah daun-daunan dengan regular composting. Dari BASF ini kita mendapatkan dua output, yaitu fresh larva untuk pakan ternak dan juga residu dari BASF sendiri bisa digunakan sebagai pupuk alami. Next slide. Dan dari teknologi BASF sendiri, kita bisa memperoleh berbagai produk yang sangat berguna, yaitu yang pertama kita bisa memperoleh fresh larva sendiri, di mana konversinya dari sampah organik menjadi fresh larva itu sekitar 10-20%, dan dari sampah organik menjadi residu BASF itu sekitar 35-40%. Rasio konversi ini semua tergantung dari jenis sampah yang kita olah, sehingga perlunya kita melakukan pre-treatment atau pengolahan sebelum kita berikan BASF, yaitu kita bisa campur berbagai macam sampah organik untuk mendapatkan nutrisi yang kita harapkan. Next slide, please. Dan ini adalah beberapa bentuk packaging yang sudah kita kembangkan dari Pro BASF. Kita coba terapkan di market Surabaya. Jadi packaging jar ini adalah bisa kita targetkan untuk para hobiis yang hanya membutuhkan dalam jumlah kecil, tapi dengan harga yang premium. Kemudian kita bisa targetkan kepada poultry atau para peternak dengan kemasan bulk atau kemasan yang lebih besar. Jadi kemasan tidak premium, tapi dia bisa dapat harga lebih murah dengan packaging yang sederhana. Next slide. Dari sekitar desa Padamukti dan Cibodas, kita melakukan wawancara terhadap 5 peternak ayam, 4 peternak bebek, dan juga 3 peternak lele. Dari semua peternak tersebut, kita lakukan kalkulasi kebutuhan pakan yang diperlukan oleh para peternak setiap harinya adalah sekitar 1,6 ton. Sehingga jika kita melakukan substitusi sebanyak 30% untuk mengganti pakan komersial menjadi BASF segar, sehingga kita membutuhkan sekitar 500 kilo larva segar, di mana itu artinya kita membutuhkan untuk mengolah kurang lebih sekitar 5 ton sampah organik untuk memenuhi market yang ada di desa Padamukti dan juga Cibodas. Next slide. Dan tentunya untuk kita memulai sebuah bisnis BASF, kita perlu melakukan yang namanya assessment terhadap kebutuhan biaya, baik secara capex atau investasi peralatan, dan juga opex atau biaya operasional. Dan kita melakukan 3 senario, yaitu dengan 500 kilo sampah organik yang diolah setiap hari, 1 ton per hari, dan juga 3 ton per hari. Dari semua biaya itu, jika kita lihat bahwa biaya terbesar itu adalah dikonsumsi oleh kebutuhan pembayaran gaji pegawai gitu. Jadi nanti semakin besar set kapasitas BASF itu kita bisa sederhanakan atau kita tekan biaya gaji karyawan ini dengan peningkatan kualitas peralatannya. Jadi kita bisa automation. Next slide, please. Oke, jadi nantinya kita bisa membantu penerapan circular economy ini di Desa Padamukti dan Cibodas seperti pembuatan sebuah startup village untuk pengolahan BASF. Apa saja sih tahapannya? Jadi yang pertama kita bisa melakukan asesmen terhadap biaya OPEX dan CAPEX seperti yang saya jelaskan di slide sebelumnya. Kemudian kita bisa melakukan desain untuk floor plan-nya. Jadi kita tahu berapa besar luasan area yang dibutuhkan. Yang ketiga, kita bisa melakukan training kepada warga lokal yang akan mengelola BASF, dan juga kita bisa training warga lokal juga untuk market assessment atau penjualan terhadap market, sehingga kita tahu ukuran market yang bisa kita gapai dengan BASF ini. Next slide. That's all for me. Thank you, Tony. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Bu Yuvita. I'd just like to make some final comments on the presentation that we've heard today. I think it's really important for us to acknowledge and understand that approximately 70% of the people living in the Citarum Basin are located in villages and towns throughout the basin. They also represent a significant source of pollution in the Citarum River and its many tributaries. And therefore, it is important for us to develop strategies that are fit for villages and those small towns. The concept of circular economy to promote better waste management and to reduce pollution into the waterway needs to be adapted to accommodate the characteristics of those villages and towns. Our analysis, in fact, found that pollution comes in many forms, but often categorized as solid and liquid waste. The biggest form of liquid waste or wastewater is, of course, in our sanitation systems. And we need to improve that if we want to work towards improving the ecological health of our waterways in the Citarum River Basin. The other is, of course, solid waste. And we found in our analysis of the two villages that only 20% of the solid waste are in fact accounted for in the TPSs. The rest of the 80% is either disposed in a discriminate way throughout the environment, including our waterways, or incinerated privately, all of which contribute to significant environmental pollution on land, water, and air. Our approach to addressing the reduction in pollution and therefore pave the way for improved ecological health in our waterways in the Citarum River Basin stems from the development of a zero waste strategy. As I said previously, this is an aspirational strategy, but our first step to that is to look at how we can introduce innovations at the community scale for sewage management and for recovering and recycling solid waste. We've heard that some of the solid waste initiatives are viable and can be done, and the technology is there. However, setting up the initiative for recovering and recycling waste, while widely acknowledged as a sustainable approach, is difficult in terms of finding the enabling environment. This remains our biggest challenge. Within the context of the Chibodas and Paramukti villages, aligning our net zero waste strategy with the Eco-Wisata initiative appears to be the most opportunistic way to create the incentive for transitioning to a circular economy, and through that implementing the net zero waste strategy. And therefore, our next step is to commence demonstrating and securing the proof of concept of key net zero waste initiative. This is delivered within the framework of the Eco-Wisata to demonstrate how waterway rehabilitation can actually go hand in hand with sustainable wastewater management. It is also about how the ecotourism activities can provide the market for recycling, both in terms of organic waste through the production of fertilizer and feedstock for the poultry, aquaculture sector within the Eco-Wisata, and also for plastic recycling to create road furniture and to demonstrate how recycling can be enabled as part of the Eco-Wisata precinct. We have secured initial pledges from relevant government departments in terms of basic infrastructure, such as 2 TPS 3Rs and 2 Sanimas. Our aim is to strengthen their performance by introducing, next to this infrastructure, such recycling initiatives that we've heard about today. Those recycling initiatives can then provide, can be supported by the Eco-Wisata activities. We are still to secure funding to add value to those existing infrastructure that we have received support from Indonesian government departments. We have also yet to secure further funding for the monitoring and evaluation of the net zero strategy and its effectiveness in delivering the vision that we have in improving the water quality in the Citarum River. To do that, we will need to upscale this initiative throughout the 600 odd villages and towns within the Citarum Basin. On that note, I'd like to finish this presentation now and pass on back to you, Ibu Retna.
Thank you to Mr. Tony Wong and team. There is one question on Q&A box from Bapak Aji Winara. What is the most important thing so that the circular economy becomes attractive for people in rural areas and can be sustainable?
Thank you very much for that question. And it is exactly the issue. The most important thing to promote a circular economy within a village such as Cibodas and Pak Rambuti is actually the market. If we do not have a viable market for the products that are being produced from the recycling facility, then we do not have an enduring and sustainable circular economy. What we saw as a real opportunity is the fact that there is another initiative, which is the Eco-Wisata initiative, that we can create to create the market to support the circular economy. The notion of sustainable agriculture, the notion of aquaculture and promotion of local cuisine as part of the Eco-Wisata initiative meant that there is a market in the community for some of the organic waste recycling. Our ability to create local furniture for the Eco-Wisata precinct is also another market. And of course, the Eco-Wisata is about healthy environment, healthy food, healthy living. And all of that actually, if we are successful in our recycling, in our circular economy, we will be successful in creating the environment for a successful Eco-Wisata.
Thank you, Mr. Tony Wong. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, now is the time for the last team to presenting about social governance pilot that will be delivered by Dr. Reni Suarso, the Director of Center for Political Science from University of Indonesia. Ms. Reni Suarso, time is yours.
Terima kasih Bu Ratna, tapi saya ingin mengingatkan bahwa tim saya memulai terlambat berapa ini? 30 menit mungkin ya, hampir 30 menit dari waktu yang sudah dijadwalkan. Jadi mohon maaf kalau saya atau tim kami menjadi selesainya lebih sore. Perkenalkan, saya Reni Suarso dari UI. Saya dengan Pak Profesor Rob Raven dan Ibu Dr. Paris Hatfield dari Monash University akan mendiskusikan hasil penelitian kami yang berjudul Bukti untuk Percontohan Tata Kelola Sosial. Presentasi akan dimulai oleh Pak Rob yang akan membahas percontohan tata kelola sosial, dilanjutkan oleh Ibu Paris bicara mengenai temuan penelitian tata kelola sosial, dan ditutup oleh saya berbicara mengenai bagaimana menghubungkan hasil penelitian dengan kebijakan dan program yang ada. Sebelum mulai, kami juga ingin menyampaikan, next slide please, ingin mengucapkan terima kasih kepada Halo, next please. Ya, thank you. Kami ingin mengucapkan terima kasih kepada seluruh anggota tim yang telah bekerja luar biasa untuk menyelesaikan penelitian ini. Research Assistant, Farhan, Fasilitator, Taufan, Bayu, Iing, Dwinanti, Cindy, dan Yuda, dan juga Workshop Assistant, Bagus, Askia, Paulus, Amara, dan Patmo, lalu juga Irfan. Kita mulai dengan presentasi pertama oleh Pak Rob. Silahkan. Rob, I hand over to you. Next, please. Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much, Bu Reni. I would like to briefly talk about the social governance pilot and what it is. And the social governance pilot is really about developing innovative approaches to governing the design and implementation of waste management and circular economy solutions. So the basic idea is that we expect that this approach will generate better outcomes because it starts with understanding the needs of people and the real life circumstances in a community. So our approach is informed by transition management, which is a governance framework for sustainable development, as well as co-design principles, which are guidelines for collaboration with people, the community, and stakeholders. And finally, our approach is also a place-based approach, which means that we aim to implement and test solutions that are adapted to the local context and needs. So ultimately, the goal of the social governance pilot is to develop and empower community insights to inform and accelerate the transition towards circular economy villages across the Citarum River catchment area. The approach itself consists of 4 types of research activities. The first one is co-creation. This is really about listening to the community and stakeholders, hearing their aspirations and ideas, and start to co-create solutions. The second type of activity is exploration. This is about translating these insights into designs for pilots and demonstrations, but also inform ideas about social innovation, such as governance, behaviors, communication, or training needs. And the third type of activity is piloting. So this is about testing the feasibility and desirability of these designs in real life conditions and in particular places, and to collect and analyze the data from that. And finally, the last is evaluation, which is about learning from the pilots through monitoring, validation, and innovation, and ultimately to develop recommendations for policy and scaling. So thank you very much, and I would like to hand over to Dr. Paris Hatfield to discuss the research findings of the pilot.
Thanks so much, Rob and Biruni. So as Rob mentioned, this research is guided by an understanding of sustainability transitions as complex and multidimensional transformations of socio-technical systems of production and consumption. Urban areas are understood as sites of socio-technical change and seedbeds for innovation due to the concentration of actors, resources, and infrastructures. In particular, innovative social governance arrangements can enable collaborative research, testing, and learning. Our research contributes to understanding the social and governance conditions that constrain and enable transitions to circular waste systems in particular places. This year, a series of focus group discussions were held with representatives from small industry, public services, community and non-government organisations, educators and government in Paramukti and Chibodas villages. Our aims were to understand the opportunities, needs, preferences and benefits for social acceptance of circular economy solutions and behaviour change as a response to river pollution, to gather ideas and suggestions from the community for alternative solutions to river pollution that we had not yet considered, to gather feedback from the community on prospects for implementation, including the co-design approach, and finally, to inform the vision and master plan through social governance recommendations. As we continue to develop the pilots, the co-design process will need to identify and include other important stakeholders, such as local residents and informal waste workers. At the workshops, stakeholders acknowledged the deterioration of the river over time. Stakeholders identified changes in environmental conditions, including industrial and household wastewater and solid waste contamination, flooding and seasonal drought, and loss of diverse flora and fauna. Changes in social uses of the river, including swimming, fishing, washing of rice, clothes, and bodies, which are now limited or no longer practiced. And changes in built infrastructure conditions, including road narrowing, careless construction of bridges, and an increase in buildings along the river. Stakeholders ultimately support river revitalisation. Participants shared aspirations for a clean, deep, stable, and waste-free river, supporting irrigation and other uses, an attractive place for recreation and tourism, a productive and revegetated riverbank, and community stewardship of the environment. Stakeholders also identify key challenges for waste management. These challenges are insufficient infrastructure, including facilities for solid waste and wastewater disposal, storage, sorting, and filtering, as well as the distance between sources of waste and solid waste disposal facilities. Harmful existing practices, including disposal of waste and wastewater in the river, and burying and burning solid and organic waste. Insufficient knowledge of wastewater pollution, the importance and value of sorting and reusing solid and organic waste, and how to make goods and compost. And finally, the management and enforcement of solid waste sorting and other waste processing. At the same time, waste processing is already underway in the villages. Individuals and households collect plastic bottles, sort waste sold to collectors, and produce organic fertilizer. Farmers produce animal feed. Youth groups collect garbage weekly, which generates income for village events, while other informal groups make flower pots and handicrafts. Some participants also shared memories of past sustainable practices, such as using leaves for food wrap as an alternative to plastic. These insights demonstrate the potential to build on existing practices to undertake the zero waste and circular economy pilots. Stakeholders really value the economic opportunities of circular economy. Stakeholders discussed entrepreneurship opportunities, including in biogas, production of new goods by SMEs, and tourism, income generation for people, farmers, SMEs, and the community, and functional uses and efficiencies, such as organic resources for farmers, agriculture productivity and cost reduction, use of biogas by households, and local use of products like bags and carpets. Small industry and educators in particular highlight the education opportunities of circular economy. In order to implement circular economy pilots, there is an immediate need for expert guidance, skills development, data on SMEs, and a focus on inclusion in the delivery of education across the sector. Finally, stakeholders see government support as integral to river revitalisation through infrastructure provision and investment, education and training for the community, leadership through effective management, regulation of waste disposal, and prioritising the wishes of the public, as well as stakeholder collaboration. Through the Research and Implementation Hub, the project will work through governance challenges identified, including available funding and land, human resources, and the cost of technology and infrastructure, business development, and tourist attractions. Based on this evidence, it's clear that social innovation is essential to river revitalisation. We understand social innovation as comprising multiple intersecting elements across governance, behaviour, economic sustainability, and policy. The first component is collaborative village scale management, which means that all stakeholders are involved in the design, implementation, and management of river environments and waste. The second component is individual and community behaviours associated with waste collection and separation and environmental stewardship. The third component is new business models and local value streams, which aim to deliver local benefits and economic development opportunities. Finally, the fourth component is knowledge translation and institutional change, achieved through learning, communication, and embedding of new and improved policy settings. I would like to now hand back to Bureni to conclude our presentation.
Thank you, Ibu Paris. Bapak Ibu, 3 slide terakhir akan banyak merujuk kepada juknis, petunjuk teknis, pelaksanaan TPS 3R yang terbit tahun 2022 dari Kementerian PUPR, Direktorat Jenderal Cipta Karya, Direktorat Sanitasi. Jadi, indahnya penelitian ini adalah ternyata tanpa kami atur-atur, hasil penelitian semua tim, bahkan lintas tim itu saling mendukung dan saling interconnection, connected satu sama lain. Jadi yang ingin saya sampaikan adalah kami ingin memperlihatkan atau kami menemukan bukti bahwa ternyata bisa dilakukan membangun ekowisata dan melakukan circular economy. Yang pertama saya ingin memulai dengan apa yang kami temui di lapangan. Penduduk di Padamukti, baik rumah tangga maupun industri UMKM, sebagian besar sudah menyadari pentingnya melakukan pemilahan sampah padat. Mereka tahu, tetapi punya masalah untuk masalah angkutan sampah dan bagaimana siapa yang memilah sampah di TPS. Mereka sudah tahu nilai ekonomisnya, tetapi sulit untuk melaksanakannya. Memang biasa, teori, konsep lebih mudah, tapi kalau udah praktek susah gitu kan. Nah, dari mana membayar honor tukang angkut dan tukang pilah sampah? Nah, tadi slide-slide sebelumnya sudah memperlihatkan bahwa ada alternatif-alternatif pemasukan untuk membayar mereka, untuk melakukan kerja-kerja tersebut. Lalu, bagaimana untuk menyelesaikannya? Di dalam juknis itu sudah disampaikan bahwa yang terlibat adalah organisasi pengelola program TPS 3R. Di tingkat desa adalah pemerintah desa, kelompok swadaya masyarakat, kelompok pemanfaat dan pemelihara, dan satu lagi fasilitator pendamping. Fasilitator pendamping juga ada 2, satu untuk pemberdayaan masyarakat yang berbicara sosial, satu lagi yang dari aspek teknis atau engineering. Ini semua sudah diatur di dalam juknis tersebut. Jadinya ini keren banget begitu kan. Jadi ternyata hasil penelitian kami itu mendukung juknis yang sudah ada. Nah, tinggal bagaimana melakukannya? Melakukannya dengan co-design, yaitu dengan pengaturan bersama, bahwa kita duduk bersama-sama melakukan perencanaan, melakukan pembangunan, menggunakan bersama-sama, memelihara bersama-sama, dan juga melakukan monitoring dan evaluasi. Boleh next slide? Di slide yang kedua, ini next slide, ya, thank you. Nah, ini mencoba menghubungkan dengan ekowisata. Tadi juga sudah dibahas oleh tim sebelumnya bahwa perlu dan mereka siap untuk membangun ekowisata. Kenapa? Ekowisata ini penting, salah satunya kalau dikaitkan dengan TPS 3R. Di dalam juknis dijelaskan bahwa kalau di satu daerah, pemerintah daerah tidak bisa mengalokasikan dana, sedangkan masyarakatnya berat atau sulit untuk membayar iuran sampah, maka perlu ada alternatif. Salah satu alternatif yang ditawarkan adalah melakukan ekowisata dan circular economy. Jadi siapa sih yang mau datang di dalam dalam pariwisata kalau banyak sampah? Datang mau menikmati atau rileks di sepanjang sungai, tetapi kemudian banyak sampah, nggak akan datang kan? Jadi mau tidak mau mereka akan merubah perilaku dan kemudian melakukan revitalisasi sungai dengan pembersihan sampah. Penelitian kami ini juga ternyata didukung oleh penelitian dari Ibu Anita dari BP2D yang menyebarkan kuesioner di Padamukti dan Cibodas di bulan April 2022. Ditemukan bahwa 92,5% responden menyatakan setuju untuk membangun ekowisata dan melakukan circular economy. Terima kasih banyak. Thank you Ibu Ratna.
Thank you, Ibu Reni Suarso and team. Dear ladies and gentlemen, Because we're running behind time, there will be no Q&A session for the last team. We will respond to the questions in communications after the webinar. And dear participants, if you need the presentation materials from the speakers, you can download it from the link on the chat box. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of our program for today's webinar. The concluding remark will be given by Dr. Reni Swarso. Time is yours.
Terima kasih Ibu Ratna. Kembali karena waktunya mepet, saya akan mempercepat. Ada 3 hal yang ingin saya sampaikan sebagai concluding remarks. Yang pertama adalah sesuai dengan instruksi Bapak Gubernur Ridwan Kamil ketika kami audiensi dengan beliau hari Rabu 31 Agustus 2022, beliau menyampaikan bahwa kami harus mengkaitkan hasil penelitian ini dengan Perpres nomor 37 2021 tentang perubahan atas Peraturan Gubernur Jawa Barat nomor 28 tahun 2019. Nah, setelah kami baca satu persatu, kami merasa bahwa dari 12 rencana aksi di dalam dalam pergub tersebut minimal ada 4 yang terkait langsung. Yang pertama adalah Renstra pengelolaan sampah, itu di halaman 80, pengelolaan sumber daya air dan pariwisata di halaman 97, program edukasi dan pemberdayaan masyarakat halaman 111, dan program riset dan pengembangan di 114. Sehingga kami berharap penelitian kami bisa mendukung pergub. Khususnya untuk poin 7, pengelolaan sumber daya air dan pariwisata, target outcome di 2025, jumlah destinasi wisata air yang direncanakan dibangun ada 5 lokasi. Kami sangat amat berharap 1 lokasi tersebut bisa diletakkan di Desa Padamukti dan Cibodas. Kemudian yang kedua, kami juga ingin memperlihatkan bahwa kerja kolaborasi 2 negara tetangga, Indonesia dan Australia, dan satu lagi Zurich yang jauh, yang lintas bidang ilmu, lintas sektor, dan quadruple helix, ini tidak berhenti di sini saja. Mungkin penelitian tahap pertama sudah selesai, tetapi kami tertantang untuk tidak hanya melakukan penelitian, tapi mendorong bagaimana kontribusi konkret di lapangan. Sehingga kami sangat membutuhkan bantuan Ibu Bapak sekalian untuk melanjutkan penelitian ini dan untuk membuktikan hasil penelitian kami, bahwa itu memang bisa dilaksanakan dan berkontribusi. Yang terakhir, ada 2 catatan penelitian yang menurut pendapat kami penting untuk diperhatikan. Yang pertama adalah tata kelola sampah secara umum sudah sukses untuk limbah padat, tetapi untuk limbah cair masih belum tersentuh dengan baik. Ada penelitian bahwa yang mengatakan di Cibodas dan Padamukti 88% responden masih membuang limbah cair rumah tangga langsung di sungai. Jadi perlu mendapatkan perhatian juga. Yang terakhir adalah adanya keresahan atau kekhawatiran apa yang akan terjadi di Sungai Citarum dan anak-anak sungainya ketika keterlibatan sektor TNI di dalam pelaksanaan renaksi itu sudah selesai di tahun 2027. Nah, sangat penting bahwa melakukan perubahan perilaku membuang sampah, tidak hanya di Padamukti dan Cibodas tentunya, tetapi bisa start dengan pilot project di Padamukti dan Cibodas bahwa perilaku membuang sampah itu sangat penting. Tidak boleh membuang sampah sembarangan. Terima kasih banyak Ibu Bapak, terima kasih telah bergabung dalam seminar ini. Selamat siang, shalom, salam sejahtera. Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Terima kasih Ibu Reni Swarso. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, for the closing, I will do it in Bahasa Indonesia. Hadirin yang berbahagia, dengan berakhirnya concluding remarks dari Ibu Reni Swarso, maka berakhir pula acara kita pada hari ini. Sebelum kami tutup, izinkan saya untuk mengucapkan terima kasih kepada Gubernur Provinsi Jawa Barat, Bapak Dr. Honoris Causa Haji Muhammad Ridwan Kamil, ST.MUD, Sekretaris Daerah Provinsi Jawa Barat, Bapak Dr. Insinyur Setiawan Wangsa Atmaja, Diploma SEM, Kepala Badan Penelitian dan Pengembangan Daerah Provinsi Jawa Barat, Ibu Linda Al-Amin, STMT, Kepala Dinas Lingkungan Hidup Provinsi Jawa Barat, Ibu Dr. Insinyur Prima Mayaning Tias, MSI. Terima kasih juga kepada Study Melbourne, FESCI, dan Victorian Government Terima kasih juga untuk seluruh pemaparan materi dan panelis dari UI, UNPAD, CSIRO, EAWAG or Swiss Federal Institute of Aquatic Science and Technology, ProBS, DLH, dan BP2D. Tidak lupa juga kami berterima kasih kepada seluruh panitia webinar pada hari ini dan hadirin yang telah mengikuti acara Citarum Virtual Webinar. Baik hadirin yang berbahagia, dengan demikian berakhir sudah acara pada hari ini. Kami mohon maaf untuk segala kekurangan selama pelaksanaan acara pada hari ini. Saya Ratna Suryani, pamit mohon undur diri. Selamat sore. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.